evening, you jive turkeys. Welcome to Video Ferox. Now you're sitting there probably asking yourself, well, wait a second, where the hell's our video nasties at? Don't worry, they'll be back soon enough. But in that this is February, I have a project that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and this is our window of opportunity. So we're going to explore Blaxploitation History Month. Ashley and Brad and Teresa and I, we've all picked one Blaxploitation movie, and we're going to look at them in the next 4 weeks or so. Tonight's movie, we're going to be watching Dracula's soul brother, Blacula. Let's roll the trailer,
You shall pay, Black Prince. I curse you with my name. You shall be Blacula.
Blacula, the Black Avenger, rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blacula, Dracula's soul brother, deadlier even than he.
You know, he is a strange dude.
You're the nut that ran in front of my cab. You're the only imbecile on this street. Boy.
Blacula.
Look at man, you found, he's got to be around here somewhere. Now listen, you take your hands off of me. I don't know you.
He thirsts for your blood. He hungers for your soul. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger. Hot, fresh blood will quench his awful thirst.
Make it a Bloody Mary. Are you, into the occult?
No!
How about the, heavy stuff?
What do you think of vampires?
Vampires? I think they're possibly the most fascinating of all.
More horrifying than Dracula. The Black Avenger, Blacula, from American International Pictures.
So that was The Black Avenger, which actually would be a really cool movie to go see, but no, that was Blacula. Blacula occurred really super early in the Blaxploitation cycle. Like Shaft had come out in 1971, and Mr. Sweetback's song, Soul Brothers song, whatever. I fucked that up. That was all 1971. This was 1972, so it was still super early in the Blaxploitation cycle.
Yeah, this is a really good, solid one that came out right as a lot of movies were finding their place. They hadn't really had much of a niche. There wasn't like, the revenge movie and the horror movie and the like sci-fi movie or whatever. They were all pretty much street. And this is a prime example of something going sideways to give people a little something they weren't getting on a regular basis in their neighborhood.
The movie opens in like 1872-ish or something, like late 80s, 1880s. And it opens with Dracula's castle. And you have William Marshall, and he plays Mamuwalde. And him and his wife, Luva, are going to petition Dracula for, hey man, slavery sucks, your account, can you please do something about slavery? And Dracula's like, get the fuck out of here.
Admittedly, the guy they have playing Dracula he's okay for the role. But he has some amazing chemistry between him and the actor playing Mamuwalde.
William
Marshall, because Marshall is Mamuwalde is like, I don't think I like you anymore. And he wants to leave. And Dracula's like, no, you're going to stay here and you're going to take my insults because I'm the dude running this land right now and you're going to put up with my shit. And Mamuwalde's like, see you later, dude.
Dracula turns out to be a racist prick. Who knew?
Yeah.
So I love that scene in that, okay, yes, Dracula, he's a dick generally, but he's a racist dick here, and he is probably the most savage I have ever seen out of the Draculas because he not only turns Mamuwalde from, Prince Mamuwalde to Blacula, And he then takes him and stuffs him in a coffin, locks the coffin, seals it up in like an antechamber, takes Luva and throws her in there unturned, and says, now you will suffer the tortures of the damned because you will thirst for blood for the next 1,000 years, and you will not be able to get out of this coffin. And he turns it about. Wait.
And before he does this, he turns to her, Luva, and says, you're going to watch, or you're going to listen to him suffer until you die.
And it'll be the comforting screams of Blacula that escort you into eternity.
And it's so cruel and just demented.
So the movie then, after this really cool opening title where you've got this funky, funky music, and it's just kind of animated, almost similar to like what you get with a spaghetti western, but not quite. And then we get to the unfortunate gay guys.
Yes, they're raving stereotypes. I mean, you've got this kind of black Puerto Rican guy with the Puerto Rican fro. And, I mean, he's not flaming. These guys are not flaming. They're just really, really arch. There is a difference.
These two are actually kind of entertaining to watch as a couple because they kibitz in a wonderful fashion.
They are very catty gay people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, very stereotypically catty gay people.
And by this time, Bobby had taken like a hammer to the lock on the coffin and got the lock off. And so it's just sitting there while these guys are paying attention to each other, and Bobby's wrapping Billy's arm with gauze, and they're completely just kibitzing with each other, paying no attention to what's going on behind them, because why would you? You're in your own place, so there's no reason to get freaked out about a coffin.
Although I do have a question, in that when they are buying the stuff from the solicitor, they are very clearly educated that Dracula's a thing and that vampires are a thing. And yeah, the solicitor plays it off as, no, those are just all legends and myth. Don't believe them, but I'll still knock 15% off. But the thing is, so you know what a vampire is. You've been to Dracula's castle, bought all his stuff, and here's a coffin. Don't you might want to have maybe some garlic on hand just in case?
Well, these guys are typical examples of Americans who grew up with Monster Movie of the Week, whereas the solicitor, I'm assuming, is Transylvanian or Romanian, and he's saying, well, no, Dracula was a real guy. It's just, this is stuff. This is Castle Dracula. I mean, there's a candelabra with a big ass D, on it, like a big gold D, and he's basically casting Dracula as an urban legend folklore, not as in like he didn't exist, but as in maybe things were attributed to him that didn't happen type of thing, but he was real.
And at that point, so Mamuwalde gets up out of the coffin, feasts on the two gay guys, and then he goes and inflicts his reign of terror on downtown LA. Actually, no, I misspoke. The one thing I thought was interesting that this take on Dracula and the vampire mythos is that throughout the movie, yes, Mamuwalde does horrific things because he has to survive by drinking blood. He does kill people. So he does monstrous things, but he himself is not necessarily a monster. He is very sympathetic throughout this whole movie, and a lot of that lies at the feet of Willie Marshall.
He was undead the entire time he was in his coffin, which means for the last 150 odd years or so, he's been thirsting for blood he can't have. That would drive anybody nuts. He can't see, can't move, can't drink. A thirst that can't be quenched. I mean, that would drive anybody crazy. You completely sympathize with this guy because it wasn't his fault.
Well, also, when Mamuwalde is running around L.A., he has a sense of style and class to him that's just really impressive. Okay, I'll grant you, the guy is a killer, but he comes off being considerate at times. He comes off as being graceful and charming. He's charismatic as all hell.
Well, when he winds up finding Tina, who is basically played by the same actress who was playing Luva at the beginning of the movie, and he sees her and thinks, okay, you're my wife reincarnated. He doesn't do the typical vampire hypnotism thing. He charms her. He gets her to believe in him and come to him from his own free will. So, again, Blacula, charming as fuck dude.
Well, also there's that one scene where he's in her apartment and he basically says, you have to come to me willingly. I will not force you, and if you don't come to me on your own, I'm going to leave, and I'm not going to come back and disturb you, because the subtext is he loves her too much to, continue bothering her, and he won't hurt her. So, and she's like, no, stay. And that's what continues things of rolling.
It's a very tender, very human scene. It does an awful lot to ground this movie and humanize Mamuwalde.
Mm-hmm. The fact that he makes that offer and, is considerate to her. He's actually caring about her feelings in this particular scene.
So Blacula is essentially the most human vampire that I've ever seen set to film.
It's really interesting that he takes people with the kind of kind of thing. He moves in on them, kind of gliding at them.
I love the bit with the photographer where she's in her place, and
I was expecting him to be right at the curtain as she's doing the photos, and I said, oh, he's not going to come out and film because he's a vampire. And
you were right.
True enough, because he doesn't have a reflection and whatnot, doesn't have a soul, so there's nothing for the light to catch. And then. She opens a curtain and he's back like 10 feet and just glides in. I thought, greatest move ever.
Okay, I think the movie is generally strong overall, but there's one thing that does bug me about the script, is that Mamuwalde adapts to the 20th century really, really fast. The whole, hey, I better go get the photographer and that photo because I'm not going to show up in the photo. So he goes and does that. But how does he know that that's how photography works? Because he's just been out of his coffin, maybe 24, 48 hours? Not very long at all.
He comes off as being very smart. So it's possible he might, through simple observation, like watching TV for a bit or reading newspapers or so on and so forth, he might have just picked up on a few things about the modern world that he wouldn't have known just through simple observation. I mean, if you're intelligent, you can put a lot of things together.
The problem is he'll order a Bloody Mary. He has no confusion over what cars are. I mean, yeah, okay, the smart does make sense, but you would think that I am being overwhelmed by all this crazy 1972-ness. So, like I said, it's not a very big point, but it does kind of, okay, accept and move on.
As far as cars go, he did walk in the middle of the street, with the car bearing down on him. I mean,
yeah, he got run over by a cab. After that point, yeah, it's pretty obvious he's not running out into the street again. He learned his lesson.
But he did turn the cabbie, pretty quick.
So speaking of 1972-ness, I loved how, so you've got Mamuwalde, he's running around town dressed like a traditional vampire. He's got his cape, he's got the kind of almost tuxedo thing going on, and he goes to a nightclub and fits perfectly right in. Nobody notices. I mean, because you've got people with bohemian clothes and dudes with big collars and dudes dressed like pimps, and nobody bats an eye.
You got the band, the two men in the band. There's like a trio. One's a woman and the other two are men. The two men are wearing dashikis. So it's a complete mix of, traditional African style clothing and European/American style. So somebody walking in with really outdated clothing would be looked at as, oh, that's some vintage shit you got on there. Where'd you get that thing from?
Speaking of the club, what did you guys think of the music? Because it's prominent throughout the
the music is lovely.
Freaking love it. I mean, it's exactly the kind of music you want for a movie like this.
Well, also, one of the things that I noticed is in the nightclub, at least, the two sets that the house band did were unusually well set to to what was going on. Both of them reflected on the story, and I mean, the second set they did where they had one of the lines in the lyrics of "Here he is again," and Mamuwalde comes strolling into the club. I mean, it's just perfect.
So they basically function as the Greek chorus.
Yeah.
And being that the house band is the Hughes Corporation, which you're going to know them from Rock the Boat.
Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby.
So their music is fucking strong.
Oh.
It's not quite Isaac Hayes, it's not quite Shaft, but it's very comfortably awesome and funky.
Well, also they're good, not just good musicians, they're good dancers too. I enjoyed watching their two numbers.
So the reason that I picked Blacula as my movie of the month pretty much to focus on that this kind of goofy title, very kind of insignificant movie, it needs more love. And a part of that is fucking William Marshall. I love him immensely. He has this stature and this gravitas that he brings to this, what could be a very camp part, and just brings the game.
The other great thing about his performance is watching him with Tina. He has amazing chemistry with her. It's just it's a thing of beauty to watch.
Well, him and the Dracula from the beginning of the movie, they've got great interaction. Him and Thalos Rasalima, I mean, they had great chemistry together. He works so well with this entire cast. The entire cast is really, really good.
And there is great interaction between Thalmus's character, the Doctor, and the police lieutenant, who I also liked. You know, because they make this great team.
There isn't a single character in this that I disliked. All of them were good characters. I mean, okay, admittedly, a few of them could have been changed a little bit from a more modern perspective or value set. But on the other hand, I mean, everyone was entertaining to watch, and they carried the role well as actors.
Even the stereotypically and slightly offensive gay couple in the beginning were interesting, and I liked that they had a interracial couple, which you're not going to get a lot of in the early 70s, because the hierarchy, now correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be, white dudes, black dudes, gay dudes. And so they're kind of sub-tier below the black dudes.
Especially if you're in the Bible Belt or the South somewhere, or the Southern Bible Belt, where this would have been looked at as miscegenation, with race-mixing couples, which was a crime up until, like a few decades ago. So back then, the 70s, oh yeah, that would have been a big no-no. Especially with them being gay.
Yeah, it's like that's two strikes against them.
So in that this is technically a horror movie, where do you guys come down on was it scary, was it effective, was it tense? What do you think of as a horror movie?
It's supposed to be a horror movie, but it's supposed to be a horror movie removed from the Gothic setting, even though they did put in Gothic touches like the developing room, because how else are you going to get a red light and a red background into something like that? So why not make the woman a photographer? You get the red light that gives you that Gothic ambiance of that kind of blood red, crimson almost look.
A few of the settings do have a bit of a Gothic feel. I mean, Dracula's castle, very good example, but also the warehouse and the chemical factory. Both of them had a kind of a Gothic feel to them as well. Not as strongly as Dracula's castle or the dark room, but it came off with Gothic. And I love the setting of the chemical factory towards the end of the movie. I mean, that's a great location.
I loved that entire sequence because after Tina and Mamuwalde, they're running away and they're being surrounded by the cops, and one of the cops gets a little trigger happy and guns Tina down by accident. And his response, "None of you will leave here alive," and it echoing throughout this entire chamber. And then the cat and mouse where he's running around just picking off cops. I really, really liked that sequence.
Well, also there's the subsequence where it's the cop that guns Tina down, and she's lying there injured on the floor, and Mamuwalde just gets up, and he's like, "Oh, you just feel that the smackdown is coming down on this particular cop," and Mamuwalde just grabs him and slams him into these pipes that are running along the corridor, and just wham, 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 and you're like, oh my God, that guy is so dead.
It's a well-deserved explosion of rage. I mean, Mamuwalde didn't ask for any of this to happen to him ever, and so that reaction is complete grief, at what's happened to Tina, but also what happened to Luva, because they may be the same woman, a reincarnation, or just a really close approximation. And then there's the idea that he's going to live forever, and he's losing the same woman twice.
And so what happens is that Mamuwalde bites Tina and turns her just in time. And she goes to his coffin to recuperate, and the cops find her and stake her. And when Mamuwalde sees them, he doesn't react violently. He reacts resignedly, and he acts with dignity. He's like, I have nothing left to do. Don't worry, you don't have to get out your cross. We're done here. And he goes upstairs and walks out into the sun and dies by sunlight. And I thought that was a really, really moving ending.
As Blacula goes up and commits suicide by sunlight, you get the feeling that he was just worn out. I mean, he spent this entire time chasing after the woman he loves, believing her to be the same woman. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. And then he loses her again, to a stake. And it's interesting because she had like the Bride of Frankenstein white, streaks in her hair, and her hair had grown out since she got staked. And then after the stake gets pulled out, her hair goes back to normal and she loses the streaks. But yeah, he didn't have the fight in him anymore. And it's just the thought of, okay, I'm done. This is my only escape from this eternity of hell. So he goes up and lets himself be burned, to death in broad daylight.
The mannequin that they got for Mamuwalde's corpse, I thought looked really good because it actually looked like a dead, desiccated William Marshall. Well done, special effects team. Well played.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, you have to give the special effects guys some kudos for the difference between Mamuwalde when he's looking human and Mamuwalde when he's got his vampire face on. Because his vampire face, he's got this huge widow peak, and his eyebrows merge into his hair, and he's got a bit more of a beard.
Yeah, he's got that sideburn thing going on.
Yeah. And when he's being human, he's more or less clean shaven. He's got some big sideburns, but they're not as dramatic.
It was the 70s. Everybody had sideburns. The ladies had sideburns.
Yeah, I mean, half the people he turns get the vampire widow's peak, especially the cab driver when she comes back and she's kind of running almost in slow motion down the hallway towards the coroner after she's been on the slab. And Thomas told the guy, lock the door. He didn't lock the freaking door because he got distracted by the phone. Like, he couldn't take 2 seconds and just put the key in the lock and turn it. No, he goes to the phone and does what guys on the phone do. They turn their back and start yapping, and then something bad happens. This is what you get when you don't listen to the guy that said lock the door. She may look dead, but she ain't dead, man.
If you're going to remember one shot out of this entire movie, this is going to be it, where the vampire cab driver is running at the camera in slow motion down the hallway. And this is scary, freaky. Oh my God. Okay, I've seen this movie a dozen times, and it still makes me go, gah.
And poor Sam, That was one thing. I halfway expected him to wind up in the warehouse with the other vampires, but he never did. He was a loose thread, a loose end. He obviously had been turned and left the mortuary and probably still wandering around out there somewhere.
Oh, one of the cool things that I liked. Now, usually when you're talking about a low budget, and this is very low budget, a Dracula movie, the transformation from when he decides to bat out usually looks cheap as fuck. And the bat usually is basically a puppet on a string. Okay, it still looks super low budget here, but the transformation from Mamuwalde to bat looks pretty good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it looked good, particularly the first time he did it looked really good. The second time looked a little cheesy, but the first time sold it, for me.
So we can go on about Blacula all day long. So we'll have to go to any final thoughts, gentlemen, or shall we just call it a night?
This is a good version of the Dracula story. I mean, it retells it well, without the main character actually being Dracula. It's kind of ironic.
Alrighty. Dracula, but not quite.
Yeah, kind of like, I wouldn't say Dracula Light. It would actually be Dracula Dark.
So this is your first time seeing Blacula, wasn't it?
Yeah, I owned
What'd you
it.
think?
I liked it. Love it a lot. I love the atmosphere in it. I love the lighting, the music, the performances, pretty much everything about this film. It feels like a Hammer horror movie, to be honest. It feels like a Hammer horror movie as shot in L.A.
Brad, did you like Blacula?
Yes, I did. This is the fourth time watching it, and actually, oddly enough, it's the second time watching it today, and it's a great movie. It's an excellent vampire movie. I mean, there's tons of crappy vampire Dracula specifically ripoffs, and this is not one of them. This is a good film.
Obviously, since I wound up picking the movie, I love the hell out of it. I mean, it works on every level. It's a nice, tight story. It's good characters, good acting. I mean, it's the complete package. So, really, put aside the whole, oh, well, that's a really goofy title. Because, let's face it, the title is goofy as fuck. But, you get past that, it's really fucking good.
I mean, this is some Shakespearean shit here. These guys weren't playing around doing a knockoff. This was, as you'd say, straight up homage. Really done well. Dracula in an urban setting in L.A. You know, you can just feel the Shakespeare pour out of all these characters as they kind of go about their rounds.
The music's strong. I mean, really, I can't think of anything aside from the goofy name that would be a turnoff.
And although there's comedic moments, they're not played for camp, which you'd think that with the title being what it is, I mean, the title just happens to be there.
But the rest of the movie is completely serious with occasional moments of levity because you can't be serious all the time.
And back in the 70s when this came out, if you'd seen the trailer for this in one of those little neighborhood theaters or in a big multi-screen theater like, say, the Lewis and Clark, and you heard Dracula saying, "I will call you Blacula," that would have gotten butts in seats more than anything else. You know, just from that alone, people say, "Blacula, what the hell? We gotta get back next week." And this is the kind of stuff you would have seen that was coming out multiple times a year when you had like Three the Hard Way or The Come Down or whatever, stuff like that, you know, Friday Foster, with stuff coming out all the time, boom, 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 and you catch it while you can, you know, gotta get them all.
So, yes, we love the fuck out of it. You loved it the first time around. You loved it 4 times. I loved it multiple times. So, yes, go watch Blacula.
Hell yeah. See that
Definitely.
shit. Must see.
Sadly, we don't have enough time to cover Scream, Blacula, Scream, which is a damn shame. But maybe next year. Next week, however, you can't escape her presence in Blaxploitation History Month for too long. It's Pam Grier in Coffee. So, join us here next week for that. In the meantime, drop us an email, thevideonastyproject@gmail.com. And until we meet again, friends, stay funky.
That is the rudest nigger I've ever seen in my life.